doesn't fit very well. That's Matti's head. Hey guys, well, oh here it is. Hey guys, welcome to Travel. Oh, it's not even called Travel Feels anymore, is it? I should just let Matti do the intro.
Thanks, Peter, for that awkward intro. You just forgot the club soda. You're supposed to, this thing. All right, today we're gonna look at color grading. You love color grading, I know I love color grading. And more specifically, we're gonna talk about how to get the vintage film look. It's a really cool look that I actually don't use often enough. I wish I could use it more, but you gotta have, you know, the time and place to use it. But we're gonna look at how to do this in Premiere Pro, and pretty much all of these things you can do straight in Premiere Pro. You don't need any extra stuff, but there are a few things that you kind of need these video assets for that you can find somewhere on the internet. I have this whole big folder of all these video assets actually on my computer that I've just compiled over the years, found in different random places. So I'm gonna be using some of those. Some of the things I don't even know actually where I've gotten them from, so I apologize for that. But it doesn't matter, this is a really easy way to get that really cool vintage film look. It's hard to even to describe what it is, but as soon as you see it, you'll know. So let's get into it. And first of all, we're gonna take a look at the color. Now, normally when I color grade my footage, I kind of go for a teal and orange look. That's kind of the best way to color grade your footage. It makes the skin tones pop a lot, like right now, teal and orange. But in this case, we're actually gonna take the shadows and we're gonna push them to the red area. And this really gives it that vintage kind of faded film look. And then we're gonna take the highlights, we're gonna take it to the opposite direction, and the midtones, just put them a little bit towards the orange. At least in this case, that's what worked best for me. But this is something that I never do, but for this vintage faded film look, it really looks cool to just push that red into the shadows. Again, don't do this all the time, but if you're trying to do this vintage look, then it works. It kind of just looks like a 70s vibe. I like it a lot. Anyways, next we're gonna take the shadows and we're gonna raise them. We're gonna do a raised shadow look. It really helps to make the footage look like it's a little bit faded. And essentially, you're just not gonna have any true deep blacks. Your shadows aren't gonna touch that 0 IRE level, if you know what that means. If you don't, it's okay, it's totally fine. And how are you gonna do this is using the curves tool. And instead of doing an S curve to kind of add your normal amount of contrast, we're gonna do this little tail at the shadows that just brings it up a little bit. And you can see it affects the footage quite a bit actually, and you don't wanna go too far with this. As always, don't go overboard with these things, but it has this really cool faded film look. It just makes it look like it's older, it's vintage. After that, a really key thing is to add some grain. Now there's two different ways of doing this, and first I'll go through the best way, but it does require an extra asset. So these grains are actually from Gorilla Grain, I think. This video is not sponsored by them. Again, this is just something that I've compiled over the years, something that I've bought a long time ago. So I'm gonna use a Gorilla Grain, and this is essentially like a scan of the film grain. And this would be 16mm film, so it's got this really cool organic grain, and we're just gonna put that over top the footage, and then we're gonna put the blending mode to overlay. And that right away gives the footage this really cool filmic look, like it's actually been filmed on film, not a digital camera. And pro tip here is if you want it to be a little bit more prominent, a little bit more in your face, you're just gonna add some contrast to that grain footage, and then right away it pops a lot more. And if you don't have one of these grain assets, then you can just use the noise effect in Premiere. That's straight built in. It's not quite as good, it's not as organic, but it's still pretty good. So you're just gonna put that on the footage and make sure to uncheck the colored noise. You do not want any colored noise. That's really gross digital. The exact opposite of what we're trying to go for. And then you're just gonna add however much you want, really. In this case, I added 15%. That seemed to be a good amount for me, but if you want it to look even grungier, even older vintage, then you can add some more. But again, don't go overboard, don't put too much. Next, when I think about vintage film, that old film look, right away for some reason I think about lens flares. There's just something about it that makes the footage look more organic, and I guess that's what I equate, you know, the old film look to is having that really organic, not clinical, not digital look. And lens flares are a great way to make it look more organic. It just kind of ties everything together. In this case, I'm just using these video files that are basically just different lens flares filmed on a black background. Again, I have no idea where I found these, but there's a whole bunch of these on the internet. Just look up lens flares. And in this case, we're gonna choose screen, which just gets rid of all the black areas of that asset. And again, we're gonna play around with the contrast to just make it pop, but also not be too in your face. And you can drop the opacity a little bit if it's too strong. You don't want it to be too fake looking because it wasn't there originally. And also you wanna choose strategically which lens flares you use because sometimes they just wouldn't make sense. So change the contrast and there we go. It looks really cool, just ties everything in together and it gives that organic look to it, which again, makes it look more vintage. And then lastly, something that you have to try out, or at least, you know, play around with a little bit, is film burns. And I actually don't even know what the history is. If you know the history of what a film burn is or how it actually happens, I assume it's when the film burns somehow. I could be wrong. Anyways, it's this really cool kind of trippy effect that happens, but you can find these video files and add them over top of your footage. And I find these work really well to transition from clip to kind of hide that transition point, especially if there's like a flash in the film burn, which there usually is. But again, don't go overboard with this. So we're gonna put the film burn on top of the clips where there's a transition from clip to clip. And then we're gonna line up where that brightest spot is right as the transition is happening. And we're gonna choose the blending mode, choose screen for this. And again, you wanna play around with the opacity, the contrast of it to get it just right. So it's not too much, but it's also, you know, it's in there, it looks good. And then just take the opacity down, taper it off so it's not on the clip the whole time. I've seen a lot of people use film burns and they just kind of overlay film burns over the whole video, and that just gets really distracting and weird. Place them in strategic points, especially if there's a weird transition from this clip to that clip. Put it right there and it's gonna make that perfectly seamless and give it that old vintage film look. And boom, there we go, vintage film look accomplished. First, we just change up those colors a little bit, add that red into the shadows, and then we're gonna raise the blacks, and then we add that grain, use those lens flares, film burns, and boom, there you go, easy as that. But like with everything, don't go overboard with something like this and only use it when it actually makes sense for your video. If you're trying to do a flashback or you just want that feel for that video, then use this kind of vintage film look, but don't just use it for all of your videos because it's gonna look really weird and overboard and it's just gonna get old really fast. All right, that's the vintage film look. I hope you guys learned something from this video. It's time for me to pack up and head to the cottage with my brother. My brother's coming to visit from Finland, so I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a part of it, and I guess I'm gonna go now. Bye.
In times of heroes, in times like these, I wish I could fly.